This is an introduction to the composition of functions. So to start off with, we're going to take a look at a function just doing basic evaluation. At the top of the screen is a task you would have seen in the past. And that means nothing more than every place you see the letter X in your function, you should replace it with a -2 and then evaluate. Down below at the bottom of the screen is the way our notation is going to start to look like, but it means the exact same thing. So if I substitute -2 in place of X, I should get an answer of 16. So we're just going to briefly look at these three examples. At the top half of the screen, there's two different functions, and they're labeled by using different letters. Down below, we're just being asked to evaluate each one of these. We're going to substitute a number in place of X. The letter in front of the number indicates which of the two functions at the top of the screen we should be looking at. So I'm going to give you what those answers would be. You can pause the screen at any time to take a look at those things. But in my bottom example with the G, I use the -2 in place of the X in the G function. The other two examples, I used the top function. Now we're going to take a look at a composition of functions. That just means you are going to evaluate more than one time. So I'm using the same two functions I did in the previous screen. I'm going to take a look at this notation, and we're going to view this as being like the order of operations. If we were trying to evaluate this, we should start inside those brackets. So the first thing I need to do is find out what G of 3 would equal. That means I need to go up to my G function. Wherever I have an X, I'm going to substitute in that +3. So if I do the order of operations, I would have -4 times +3, which is -12, plus 10, I would get a value of -2. That's what I would get inside my brackets. Now I have to substitute one more time because I have this letter F out front. So now I'm going to take my -2 and I'm going to replace my X in the F function, and then I'm just going to do the same thing again. Just use your order of operations to solve it. That means do your exponents before multiplying, so make sure you get a +4 there. So then it becomes 2 times +4 plus 3, which would be 8 plus 3, or I would obtain the answer 11. Now at the bottom of the screen, this is what your notation is going to start to look like. It means the exact same thing as what we just did right above it. When you see a notation written like this, you want to start with the function in which the letter's closest to the number. So it does mean the same thing. It means start with the G function, substitute in a 3. Whatever answer you get, then you take it and put it into the F function. So we're going to look at a few examples that are like this. I'm going to use the top two examples, the top two functions, to try to evaluate the two that are at the bottom of the screen. The order makes a difference. So if I were doing this top example, f of g of -1, I want to start with the function that's closest to the number. So that means I'm going to start with my g function. I'm going to go up to my g function, and where I have a letter x, I'm going to replace it with a -1. So that would be -4 times -1 plus 1. Doing my order of operations, I would have a +4 plus 1, which is 5. Once I get my first value, then I have to go back and put that into the f function. So now I'm going to take this 5, bring it up here to my f function, and put it in place of my x. So now I have 2 times 5 squared plus 3. if I do my order of operations, I would do 5 squared first, which is 25 times 2 is 50 plus 3. I get an answer of 53. The example below it, very similar, but the order changes. So in this example, I'm going to start with the f function because that letter is closest to my number. That means I'm going to go up to the f function. I'm going to replace that x with the -1, and then I'm going to evaluate that using the order of operations, and I should also get a 5. The next thing I would have to do is now I have to apply that into the g function. So now I'm going to replace that x in the g function with a 5. Once again, do the order of operations, and I should get a -19 for that answer. Okay, the next examples. In the upper left-hand corner are the 3 different functions, and then the other 3 blocks are separate examples. So I'm just going to start with the one that's below our 3 functions. My letter F is closest to the -5, so I would start there. I would go into the f function, replace that x with the -5, and then I would evaluate that. So I would have -10 minus 1, which is -11. Once I do that, now I have to apply the g function to it. So I would go to my g function and replace the x with a -11, so I would have 3 times -11, and I would get -33 as my final answer. The example in the top right corner, I would need to start in the a function. Now be very careful when you substitute negative numbers into a function that has an exponent. This would become a +9. So I would obtain the number 10 just for the h function. Now I need to go back and finish it by applying it in the g function. So I would come over here, put the 10 in the g function. It says 3 times x or 3 times 10. So this answer would be 30. My last example has 3 letters in it, but I still work with the letter closest to the number. So I'm going to start here with h of 2. So if I bring my 2 up, put it into my h function, I would have 2 times 2 plus 1, and I would get a 5. Now I'm just going to bring down the rest of this notation. That's only taking care of the h function. Now my letter g is closest to the 5, so that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to take my 5 and now put it up into the g function. So instead of 3 times x, it's 3 times 5. And then I'm going to bring down my f. I haven't applied that yet. So last, I need to take my number 15 and replace it up here in the f function. So if I do the order of operations, 2 times 15 is 30, minus 1, I would get a 29. Okay, I have 3 examples here for you to try. Just press pause when you're ready to see the answers. Hit play again. Okay, here's the 3 correct answers for those examples. So if you need to look through those, just select pause and take a look at how they were solved. Okay, once again, here's 3 more examples to try. So just press pause and hit play when you're ready to see answers.